Hi friends! Welcome to day 2 of set design. I hope you really had a good time looking at the Lion King set on Broadway. How cool was that? And also looking at those other set designs and seeing what you could see, what sort of elements showed you where that story took place and what the mood was. Super fun. The story that we are going to be basing our set design on is a story called The Big Orange Splot. It is one of my most favorite stories, and it is perfect for set design, and hopefully you will see why. In a moment, you will watch the story of The Big Orange Splot. And I want you to think about something as you watch. Would you rather live on a neat street, or would you rather live on a dream street? Are you curious? Well, let's get to it, friends. Here is The Big Orange Splot. Enjoy! The Big Orange Splot by Daniel Manus Pinkwater. Mr. Plumbean lived on a street where all the houses were the same. He liked it that way. So did everyone else on Mr. Plumbean's street. "This is a neat street," they would say. Then one day, a seagull flew over Mr. Plumbean's house. He was carrying a can of bright orange paint, no one knows why, and he dropped the can, no one knows why, right over Mr. Plumbean's house. It made a big orange splot on Mr. Plumbean's house. "Ooh, too bad," everyone said. "Mr. Plumbean will have to paint his house again." "I suppose I will," said Mr. Plumbean. But he didn't paint his house right away. He looked at the big orange spot for a long time. Then he went about his business. The neighbors got tired of seeing that big orange spot. Someone said, "Mr. Plumbean, we wish you'd get around to painting your house." "Okay," said Mr. Plumbean. He got some blue paint and some white paint, and that night he got busy. He painted at night because it was cooler. When the paint was gone, the roof was blue, the walls were white, and the big orange spot was still there. Then he got some more paint. He got red paint, yellow paint, green paint, and purple paint. In the morning, the other people on the street came out of their houses. Their houses were all the same, but Mr. Plumbean's house was like a rainbow. It was like a jungle. It was like an explosion. There was the big orange spot, and there were little orange spots. There were stripes. There were pictures of elephants and lions and pretty girls and steam shovels. The people said, "Plumbean has popped his cork, flipped his wig, blown his stack, and dropped his stopper." They went away muttering. That day, Mr. Plumbean bought carpenter's tools, and that night he built a tower on top of his roof, and he painted a clock on the tower. Day, the people said, "Plumbean has gushed his mush, lost his marbles, and slipped his hawser." They decided they would pretend not to notice. That very night, Mr. Plumbean got a truck full of green things. He planted palm trees, baobabs, thorn bushes, onions, and frangipani. In the morning, he bought a hammock and an alligator. When the other people came out of their houses, they saw Mr. Plumbean swinging in a hammock between two palm trees. They saw an alligator lying in the grass. Mr. Plumbean was drinking lemonade. "Plumbean has gone too far. This used to be a neat street. Oh, Plumbean, what have you done to your house?" the people shouted. "My house is me, and I am it. My house is where I like to be, and it looks like all my dreams," Mr. Plumbean said. The people went away. They asked the man who lived next door to Mr. Plumbean to go and have a talk with him. "Tell him that we all liked it here before he changed his house. Tell him that his house has to be the same as ours so we can have a neat street." The man went to see Mr. Plumbean that evening. They sat under the palm trees, drinking lemonade and talking all night long. Early the next morning, the man went out to get lumber and rope and nails and paint. When the people came out of their houses, they saw a red and yellow ship next door to the house of Mr. Plumbean. "What have you done to your house?" they shouted at the man. "My house is me, and I am it. My house is where I like to be, and it looks like all my dreams," said the man, who had always loved ships. "He's just like Plumbean," the people said. "He's got bees in his bonnet, bats in his belfry, and nuts in his noodle." Then, one by one, they went to see Mr. Plumbean late at night. They would sit under the palm trees and drink lemonade and talk about their dreams. And whenever anybody visited Mr. Plumbean's house, the very next day that person would set about changing his own house to fit his dreams. Whenever a stranger came to the street of Mr. Plumbean and his neighbors, the stranger would say, "This is not a neat street." Then all the people would say, "Our street is us, and we are it. Our street is where we like to be, and it looks like all of our dreams." I hope you enjoyed the story, everybody. So now, the question: would you rather live on a neat street or a dream street? There's no wrong answer. Just think about it. Which would you rather live on? Let's look at the neat street of Mr. Plumbean. All of the houses look exactly the same. I want you to take notice of what shapes are in the houses. What shapes are in front of the houses? What colors are the houses? Your job is to create a neat street. It could be exactly like Mr. Plumbean's neat street, or it could be a neat street all of your own. But let's think, if we are going to make a production of the Big Orange Splot, we don't want our neat street to be big and super spectacular yet. We want it to grow. We want it to become a surprise. So when you make your neat street, I want you to think of what shapes you are going to make all of the houses. Maybe think a little bit simple first, so that when we start making those dream houses, that they can be bigger and more grand. Think about the colors. They all have to be the same colors. Are they going to be darker colors? Are they going to be lighter colors? What do you think? So your job now is to create a neat street. You can draw it, you could build it, you could sculpt it, you can put it on a computer if that's what you would like to do, but I would like you to make a neat street and post a picture of your neat street up on the assignments. Have fun. I can't wait to see all of your neat streets. Have a good day, everybody. Bye.